Okay, so we're diving into some fascinating stuff today. You shared some sources that look at how the executive branch might change, especially when it comes to presidential power.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Right. So we're not here to pick a side or anything, but to really try and grasp the core of these ideas and, what they could mean for the balance of power in the US government.
Exactly, a deep dive.
Yeah, deep dive.
Yeah.
So one of the things that kept popping up was this idea of the unitary executive theory.
Mhm.
Sounds kind of academic, but it seems pretty key to understanding some of these potential shifts. What's the gist of it?
Well, it's interesting because the unitary executive theory, it's kind of a simple concept at its heart. It's the idea that the president has a lot of authority over the entire executive branch.
Okay.
So think of it as this top-down structure where the president is right at the top calling the shots for all the agencies, even the ones that are usually seen as independent.
Right.
Now, it's not like everyone agrees on this interpretation of the Constitution,
Right.
but it's a perspective that can really drive certain actions.
So if someone's operating under this theory, what kind of practical moves might they make?
Hmm.
The stuff you shared mentioned executive actions affecting these independent agencies.
Yes. One example you sent over was a reported executive order from February 2025, I think it was.
Okay.
And this order would require agencies like the FCC and the FTC, the Federal Communications Commission and the Federal Trade Commission,
I know them.
to
Yeah.
submit their proposed actions for White House review.
Hmm.
And these agencies deal with some pretty important stuff like internet regulations, consumer protection, things that touch our lives every day.
Absolutely.
So centralizing the review process could mean the president has a more direct influence over their decisions.
Right. So it's about bringing more of what the government does under the president's direct control. Okay.
Mhm.
The sources also talked about potential changes to the federal workforce. What's the main idea there?
Well, the discussion is around restructuring the civil service,
Okay.
and that could involve replacing some career civil servants with political appointees, folks chosen by the president,
Hmm.
and even introducing a new civil service test that would focus on assessing loyalty to the administration.
Wow.
The idea, as it's presented, is to make sure the people actually carrying out the government's work are on board with the president's goals.
Loyalty test for government jobs. That's a concept that I think could raise some eyebrows.
Definitely.
It definitely suggests a desire for tighter control from the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about challenging the authority of the courts? That seems like a huge point.
Right. It brings up this important question of how different parts of the government interact with each other.
Uh-huh.
The sources mentioned a few instances where the Trump administration appeared to act against court orders, specifically mentioning deportations under the Alien Enemies Act.
Okay.
Legal experts have expressed concerns that if the executive branch doesn't respect court rulings, it could lead to a breakdown in the checks and balances that are supposed to keep things running smoothly.
So it's about whether the president feels bound by what the courts decide.
That's the core issue. Yeah.
And then there's the whole thing about impounding funds. What's the big picture there?
Well, this one's really interesting because it involves potentially challenging the Impoundment Control Act of 1974.
Okay.
This act basically limits the president's ability to refuse to spend money that Congress has approved.
Right.
The idea being floated is to give the president more authority in this area. And if that happened, it could shift a lot of budgetary power from Congress to the president.
Which would change how federal money is used.
Exactly.
So to recap, we've got this idea of a strong executive potential White House control over independent agencies, changes to how the government workforce is structured, the relationship between the president and the courts, and who ultimately controls government spending.
You got Those are the key areas where your sources pointed to potential shifts in how the executive branch operates and how it interacts with other parts of the U.S. government.
So for you listening out there, the big question is this: how might these potential changes in presidential power affect the checks and balances that are supposed to make sure no single part of the government gets too powerful?
Right.
It's a fundamental part of how our system works, and these ideas could have a big impact on its future.
Absolutely. It's something to think about.
Food for thought.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for breaking it all down.
You're welcome.
This was a good one.
Yeah, it was interesting.
All right, until next time.
See you later.